Lesson 15, Reading, the Development of Writing.
Writing is one of mankind's most important inventions. Man had been speaking for many thousands of years before he learned to record the sounds of speech by marks that can be seen. He has been able to write for only a few thousand years. Writing developed from drawing. No one knows exactly how this happened, but picture writing was undoubtedly the first step. A picture or series of pictures was used to tell a story, or perhaps to remind the storyteller of the story. Picture writings have been found all over the world. Next, perhaps, pictures or marks derived from simplified pictures were used to represent single words or ideas. For example, a circle which was originally used for sun might come to represent the related ideas of heat, light, or day. The Phoenicians and Greeks developed alphabetic writing. They were the first to use written symbols to represent single spoken sounds. The alphabetic system, of course, can be used to write any language. The Romans adopted it for Latin, making a few changes. Today, many of the languages of the world, including ones which are not related to each other in the spoken form at all, like English, Swahili, Vietnamese, Quechua, use the Roman form of letters. But the alphabetic principle was invented only once. All modern alphabets come by way of the Greeks or Romans.
Questions.
1. From what kind of activity did writing develop? 2. What was the first step in the development of writing? 3. Have picture writings been found in Europe? 4. What kind of mark or drawing was often used to represent the sun? 5. What is alphabetic writing? 6. With what kind of languages is it possible to use an alphabetic writing system? 7. Is Chinese written with an alphabetic writing system?
'Practice drills and exercises 1. 1. Reporting question word questions. Report the questions that the professor asked. Listen to the model.
1. What is one of mankind's most important inventions?
He asked what one of mankind's most important inventions was.
He asked what one of mankind's most important inventions was.
He asked what one of mankind's most important inventions was.
Now do the exercise. 1. What is one of mankind's most important inventions?
He asked what one of mankind's most important inventions was.
2. How long has man probably been able to speak?
He asked how long man probably had been able to speak.
3. How long has he been able to write?
He asked how long he had been able to write.
4. What did writing develop from?
He asked what writing developed from.
5. Where have picture writings been found?
He asked where picture writings had been found.
6. Who developed alphabetic writing?
He asked who developed alphabetic writing.
7. What system can be used to write any language?
He asked what system could be used to write any language.
Eight. Where do all modern alphabets come from?
He asked where all modern alphabets came from.
Two, reporting question word questions. Report the questions that Mrs. Smith asked her son. Listen to the model.
1. Where did you go last night?
She asked him where he went.
She asked him where he went.
She asked him where he went.
Now you do the exercise.
1. Where did you go last night?
She asked him where he went.
2. How did you get to the movie?
She asked him how he got to the movie.
3. Whose car was it?
She asked him whose car it was.
4. Who did you go with?
She asked him who he went with.
5. What did you do after the movie?
She asked him what he did after the movie.
6. Why didn't you come straight home?
She asked him why he didn't come straight home.
7. What time did you get home?
She asked him what time he got home.
Dialogue. Self-study. Carol and Mike are university students. Carol is telling Mike about her plans for a summer trip.
Hi, Carol.
Hello, Mike.
I hear you're going to Europe this summer. Is that true?
Yes, I'm going with a student group. We're flying over in June, after school's out.
How long will you be gone?
About 6 weeks. We're going to Spain, Portugal, France, and Italy.
Do you speak all those languages?
I'm majoring in Spanish and Portuguese, so I can speak those two languages pretty well.
You know some French, too, don't you?
Some. I can get along in it, but I'm not fluent.
How about Italian?
I've never had any, but I've got a new tape course.
You're studying by yourself?
Yes, I enjoy it. I work with the tapes an hour every day before I go to school.
Isn't that the bell?
Yes, we better hurry.
Nice to see you, Carol. Good luck with the Italian.
Thanks. Nice to see you.
Vocabulary study. Learn these nouns denoting speech events. All can come after the verb give. He gave a. Study the definitions before using one word to complete each of the sentences. Use a dictionary if necessary. Listen.
Talk.
An informal speech.
Speech.
A more formal talk.
Address.
A formal speech.
Lecture.
An informative speech, usually given in school.
Sermon.
An address, usually given in church on a religious subject.
1. Kelly was the name of the president's favorite speechwriter.
2. I nearly fell asleep during Professor Johnson's lecture today.
3. But I never fall asleep during the sermon in church.
4. Bob gave a little talk at the meeting and showed some slides of his trip.
5. The highlight of the ceremony was the address by President Lincoln.
Dialogue participation. Talking about languages and nationality. The teacher or the voice on tape will ask a number of questions about your nationality and language experiences. First, listen to the questions, which will be read twice, thinking of your replies to the questions. The third time, respond to the questions as they are asked.
What country were you born in? What country were you born in? Have you lived there all your life? Have you lived there all your life? What's your nationality? What's your nationality? Are you a citizen of the country you were born in? Are you a citizen of the country you were born in? You speak English very well. How long have you been studying? You speak English very well. How long have you been studying? Have you ever used language tapes as part of your study? Have you ever used language tapes as part of your study? What do you think of them? What do you think of them? Do you know any other foreign languages? Do you know any other foreign languages? Are you fluent? Are you fluent? Can you read any languages you don't speak? Can you read any languages you don't speak? Have you ever given a speech in English? Have you ever given a speech in English? What do you think is the best way to learn a foreign language? What do you think is the best way to learn a foreign language?
Now respond to the questions as they are asked.
What country were you born in? Have you lived there all your life? What's your nationality? Are you a citizen of the country you were born in? You speak English very well. How long have you been studying? Have you ever used language tapes as part of your study? What do you think of them? Do you know any other foreign languages? Are you fluent? Can you read any languages you don't speak? Have you ever given a speech in English? What do you think is the best way to learn a foreign language?
Practice drills and exercises 2. 1. Adjectives of nationality. Answer the questions using the adjective of nationality for the cued word. Follow the models. Listen.
1. Does Brazil produce good coffee? Colombia.
Yes, Brazilian coffee is good, but I've heard that Colombian coffee is even better.
Yes, Brazilian coffee is good, but I've heard that Colombian coffee is even better.
Yes, Brazilian coffee is good, but I've heard that Colombian coffee is even better.
2. Does Spain have interesting dances? Greece.
Yes, Spanish dances are interesting, but I've heard that Greek dances are even more interesting.
Yes, Spanish dances are interesting, but I've heard that Greek dances are even more interesting.
Yes, Spanish dances are interesting, but I've heard that Greek dances are even more interesting.
Now you do the exercise.
1. Does Brazil produce good coffee? Colombia.
Yes, Brazilian coffee is good, but I've heard that Colombian coffee is even better.
Two. Does Spain have interesting dances? Greece.
Yes, Spanish dances are interesting, but I've heard that Greek dances are even more interesting.
Three. Does China produce good jade? Burma.
Yes, Chinese jade is good, but I've heard that Burmese jade is even better.
Four. Does Italy produce inexpensive cars? Japan.
Yes, Italian cars are inexpensive, but I've heard that Japanese cars are even more inexpensive.
Five. Does England produce good chocolate? The Netherlands.
Yes, English chocolate is good, but I've heard that Dutch chocolate is even better.
Six. Does Italy have beautiful scenery? Norway.
Yes, Italian scenery is beautiful, but I've heard that Norwegian scenery is even more beautiful.
Seven. Does France produce good steel? Sweden.
Yes, French steel is good, but I've heard that Swedish steel is even better.
Eight. Does Germany have good sausages? Poland.
Yes, German sausages are good, but I've heard that Polish sausages are even better.
Nine. Do the Philippines produce good cigars? Cuba.
Yes, Filipino cigars are good, but I've heard that Cuban cigars are even better.
Ten. Does Mexico produce good movies? India.
Yes, Mexican movies are good, but I've heard that Indian movies are even better.
Eleven. Does the United States have good tobacco? Turkey.
Yes, American tobacco is good, but I've heard that Turkish tobacco is even better.
Twelve. Does Portugal produce delicious wine? Yugoslavia.
Yes, Portuguese wine is delicious, but I've heard that Yugoslavian wine is even more delicious.
Two, adjective precedence. Statement of fact. Listen.
1. He's a poet. He's from Spain and he's very famous. 2. He's a scientist. He's from Germany and he's quite important. 3. He's a banker. He's from England and he's very influential. 4. She's an educator. She's from Korea and she's important. 5. He's a designer. He's from Sweden and is very well known. 6. He's an astronomer. He's from Japan and is quite famous. 7. She's from Italy. She's an actress and is well known. 8. He's from Portugal. He's a novelist and is very famous. 9. He's from Thailand. He's an artist and is very important. 10. He's from France. He's a biologist and is well known.
Speaker A. Form a yes-no question based on the statement of fact. Follow the models. Speaker B. Reply using the two adjectives before the noun. Study the two examples. Listen. 1. Did I understand you to say he's someone famous from Spain?
Yes, he's a famous Spanish poet.
2. Did I understand you to say he's someone important from Germany?
Yes, he's an important German scientist. Word study. Learn these words denoting non-standard forms of language. Study the definitions before using one word to complete each of the sentences. Use a dictionary if necessary. Listen. Dialect.
The non-standard form of language of a local or social subgroup.
Accent.
A pronunciation characteristic carried over from the dialect or native language of the speaker.
Slang.
Non-standard terms often originating from a low-prestige subgroup.
Jargon.
Specialized or technical terms of a professional class.
Colloquialism.
A term characteristic of the spoken rather than the written language.
1. Carlos speaks English with a heavy Spanish accent.
2. The dialect of my hometown uses the words breakfast food for cereal.
3. Old man is a slang term for father.
4. In the technical jargon of the newspaper industry, a legman is a reporter who goes out to search for news.
5. We seldom find lend a hand in formal writing. It's a colloquialism.
Listening practice. Two men, William and Charles, are talking. They have not known each other for very long. Iowa, which is mentioned in the dialogue, is one of the states of the United States. The listening practice continues on tape.
Listen to the dialogue and then choose the correct answer to the questions.
Where are you from?
Where are you from, William?
That's a hard question for me to answer, Charles. Do you mean where was I born, or where did I live most of my life, or where do I live now?
Well, I was born in a little town in Iowa, and I grew up there. When anybody asks me where I'm from, I say Iowa. I haven't lived there for 20 years, but I'm still from Iowa.
It's different with me, Charles. I was born in Germany. When I was 2 years old, my family moved to France. 3 years later, we moved to Japan. Then we went back to France, then to Switzerland, Italy, and England. Finally, we moved to the United States. So where am I from?
I guess Germany, if you were born there.
But I haven't been in Germany since I was 2 years old. It's hard for me to say I'm from Germany when I don't speak a word of German, and I don't know any more about the country than you do. Perhaps not as much. I'm a citizen of the United States now.
I guess you're from all over. You must speak a lot of languages.
Yes, several. I'm fluent in French, Japanese, and Italian, and I speak a little Spanish and English.
A little English? You speak it as well as I do. I thought you were born in the United States. In fact, that's why I asked you where you were from.
I've lived here now for 20 years, so it ought to be pretty good. Where did you learn French so well? Did you live there?
No, my wife's French. When we got married, she only spoke a few words of English. I taught her English, and she taught me French. I studied some Spanish in school, but I never really learned to speak it.
Now answer the questions.
1. Where was Charles born?
A. In the United States.
2. Why doesn't William consider himself a German?
A. Because he hasn't been there since he was 2 years old.
3. Why does William speak English so well?
B. Because he has lived in the United States for more than 20 years.
Four. Why is it that William learned so many foreign languages?
B. He lived in countries where several foreign languages were spoken.
5. How did Charles learn French so well?
B. His wife's French.
End of lesson 15.